Hi, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Meet the Grad Alumni and Industry Panel for Nursing, PSW, Allied Health, and Health Studies. My name is Tiffany Isles, and I am faculty here for the School of Health and Community Services at Mohawk College, as well as the PSW coordinator. It's my pleasure to be your host and moderator for today's health science panel discussion. Thank you to the Mohawk students and recent graduates joining us virtually today. We hope you enjoy hearing about the career journeys of our panelists and their thoughts on how job seekers can engage in current market. Before we begin our discussion, I'd like to introduce our alumni panelists. So our first panelist is Sandra Limos. She graduated from the Personal Support Worker program in 2019. During this challenging time, she began working in the long-term care as a new member in one of the lodges for the city of Hamilton. So welcome, Sandra.
Thank you.
Jackie Riches graduated from Human Resource Program at Mohawk in 2020 and currently works at CBI Health Group as a regional talent acquisition specialist, recruiting home support and personal support workers, nurses, and therapists across Southwest Ontario as part of the home health team. So welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
And our third panelist is Sheri Lee Shrigley. Sheri Lee graduated from the Social Service Worker Program in 1989. She's currently Director of Development at Thrive Group, where she is responsible for the design, implementation, and management of a variety of initiatives to promote financial diversification, sustainability of the Thrive Group organization. Welcome, Sheri.
Thank you.
A big thank you to our panelists for taking the time today to share your experiences with students. I look forward to hearing more about your career paths and lessons learned along the way. So to start the discussion off, I do have a few questions, and I was going to ask each question, the same question to all three of you, because I do think you'll each have a very different answer. So maybe we'll start with Sheri. What has your career path been after graduating?
Thanks, Tiffany. I started very quickly after I graduated working at SLAP's detention center as a correctional officer in Oakville. I stayed in that career for almost 30 years. My education certainly prepared me for that path, including my education and my placements. I absolutely loved working with that age group. Not only did I work with the kids in those homes, I then went on to manage our group homes, foster homes, the senior program, a community center, as well as open and secure custody facilities. Probably, I'm going to say now about 3 years ago, I was at a point in my life where things were changing greatly in the system. A lot of things happening when it came to the act and the programs itself. So I made the decision to pivot my career path and entered into healthcare. It was a fabulous decision, I think, that I made. I was working with a company, Capability Support Services, who then integrated under the Thrive Group. And I'm now in the position that I am. I think that I've had a very fulsome, rewarding career, basically working in human services, working to help individuals in the lives that they had, and really happy to be where I am today, and definitely credit that to the beginning when I was a student at Mohawk College.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's a very diverse background.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you. Jackie, what has your career path been after graduating?
So I actually graduated from a business program first over 20 years ago. And that program had an option of focusing in accounting or human resources. And I don't really like numbers a whole lot. So I went towards the human resources side of things. Shortly after I graduated, I started a full-time position in an administrative role at a call center. And I actually turned that into a career for 20 years, progressing through working in our human resources department as first an assistant, then as a payroll administrator. And then I moved into recruitment about 10 or 12 years ago. during that time, I was tossing and turning for pretty much since I had graduated about continuing into human resources and becoming certified. And over the years, the way you became registered as a HR professional changed, the requirements changed back and forth. And so I finally jumped on board and joined Mohawk College through the continuing education program. And I was doing that part-time while I was continuing to work full-time and raising my family, and finally graduated just last year in perfect timing as I was beginning my career with CBI as well. So joining the healthcare field, coincidentally, in March of 2020. So very interesting time to jump into healthcare, but it was something that I had looked forward to. I was always interested in healthcare because there's always a need. There's always going to be positions available. They may change over time, but we do really need to care for each other and keeping everyone healthy and safe.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you. You also have a diverse background. It's interesting to hear. Different paths take us different places, I guess.
They do.
Thank you. And Sandra, what has your career path been after graduating?
Well, I got hired when I was doing my placement in the same place. I got hired as soon as I finished, and it was very challenging in that moment because we start getting close to the residents, and for me, it's the best experience I can have because personal support worker for me is personal because we are always close to the residents. We are like a family for them. Sometimes they can see their own family and they recognize you as a family. They see you more often. So we can be close to them. And I think for me, support is because we start to know them even if they can speak, because the residents, they can speak because of their illness. So we can know even if they can speak, we know how they feel on that day. So for me, personal support workers like the ears and the eyes for the nurses and doctors, because we can recognize when they are not feeling good or when they are feeling mad for something, and we can tell the nurses. So that's why it's very challenging, but also is we feel comfortable when we can help. So that, and then after I was working in that place, I have the opportunity to get hired with them in the long-term care of the city of Hamilton. So I'm working there since last December.
Very nice. And yeah, the PSW role right now is highly needed and very valued. So thank you for your work that you're doing.
Yes, and also I have the opportunity to speak English, Spanish, and French. And there are some people that goes to their when they were little, their childhood language. So I can have the opportunity to speak with them. They feel them comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a definite asset for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Before I ask the next question, I did want to remind everyone that if you have specific questions when you hear our panelists talking, you can put them up in the chat and there will be time for us to address those questions in a little bit. So maybe we'll still just do the same rotation. We'll start at Sheri, Jackie, Sandra. So the next question I have for you are, what are the soft skills in your profession above and beyond your technical training that have helped you succeed?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tiffany. This is such a critical piece in the work that we do. So I was happy to see that it was on there. In working with all the individuals, you certainly can train for the job, but these soft skills that individuals have are just so critical. So, in all of our work, and I think in particular in the line of work that I'm doing, communication is key. How we communicate everything that we do every day matters so much. And especially, when we see what we've gone through in the last year working together and communicating. And I think along with that goes listening. make sure that we're listening to everybody, you know, so that we understand all their needs and ensure that we're meeting them. And whether that be, you know, in working with our coworkers, our residents, or clients, listening to them is so important. I think an everyday, you know, especially over the last year, is positivity and a sense of humor. You know, we're all dealing with so many challenges every day, and this type of work is, you know, certainly can have its challenges and ups and downs, and to enjoy what you do and be positive and have a sense of humor is so important. And I'm sure everybody around you will certainly appreciate that. And you know, a couple others that I'll mention, you know, would be utilizing conflict resolution skills, you know, and self-control in dealing with situations. Again, we can be dealing with some really difficult things every day. And just to, you know, tackle those in a calm manner. And when you're using those listening skills and communication, you know, to help resolve conflicts that could be going on. Again, really important, and with everybody that you're working with.
Yeah, thank you. Those are a handful of wonderful soft skills that I think are needed, especially in this time, for sure. Jackie?
I have to agree with everything Sheri just said. Communication skills are key, and that goes like partnered hand in hand with listening and active listening skills, especially in this type of a field. You've got, as Sandra mentioned, you've got some people that can't verbalize how they're feeling or what they want. And you really need to be able to pick up on some of those cues as well, from body language and emotion. And that goes well with, I think, any interaction that you also have with coworkers too, is picking up on their body language and their cues. And you'll get a lot of takeaways from a conversation on how someone's reacted to your message as well, or vice versa, and how you're handling yourself and how people are reacting to what you're telling them too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. The nonverbal piece. Thank you.
No problem.
But how about you, Sandra?
Well, yes, I'm agree with Sheri and Jackie also, because I think they don't need to speak how they feel. And as a personal support worker, we're always close to them, so we can know how they feel. And sometimes they with their eyes they can say how they feel, or because people is going up and downs every day is different for them, so it's very challenged, but it's very good also. We feel good when we can help on that way when they feeling like that. So for me, is being a personal support worker is important, because we can be close to them, right? And we can know them, and we can help to feeling them better.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the residents and clients are really thankful to have, especially a PSW like you, that really want to take that time. For sure.
Yes, when I'm with them, I don't feel the time, and I don't see the time. It's my time with them, and I make them feel important.
That's good. Good, thank you. So my next question, I guess we'll start back at Sheri again. Have you pursued additional education and training throughout your career?
Yes. So, you know, in starting in my career and working my way up from relief staff, you know, into contracts, full-time staff, and then into supervisor, and then senior management. You certainly, you know, your experience and what you learn every day is critical to guide you on that path, but there's always training and opportunities that we can all take along the way that are so critical to help us. So in moving into those roles, I took a leadership course that was certainly helpful in my new roles as I transitioned into management, and also an HR management certificate course. So again, going along with some of Jackie's experience there, you know, in working in different homes, different programs, different unions, it was certainly important to ensure that we all had those skills and those trainings in our role. So I certainly, valued that opportunity to take those courses.
That's great. Thank you. Jackie?
So, and I, of course, continued my education into the human resources program through Mohawk. But I've also taken advantage of similar leadership type of trainings and programs through my employer. So I always recommend those. If your employer is offering you some additional trainings or has programs, they're always a great way to take advantage to improve, to learn, to grow. I remember when I was originally in college, lifelong learning was always sort of impressed upon us. And I remember at the time being young and stubborn, thinking, no, when I'm done, but you're never done. You're never done learning, and you should always be open to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think both of you made good points that, you see those upper management jobs and you think, okay, out of school, I'm going to grab those. But it does take progression and time and certification and education and the hands-on skills to get there, right? How about you, Sandra? Have you pursued additional education and training?
Well, I take some trainings. Well, CPR, we always, every year we take it because we need to be always actualized. But also I took a Safe Talk, and I took a CPR for mental health also, because sometimes they as I told you, they don't speak, but they can with their way to be on one day, they can tell you how they feeling or what they are thinking. Also, I take like leave and transfer trainings, because every day is different. Recreation skills also, even if we're not exactly recreation, but sometimes we need to do something for them. And also we take we also be with this challenge time, we have to be always with hygiene and all PPE, all trainings, because we're changing every day, especially in this time with the COVID. We have to be always changing. We can say I know everything, because they're changing the way that we have to do with everybody. If we have outbreak or not is different, but we always have to be over precaution than under precaution. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that kind of aligns with Jackie and Sheri Lee as well, where in healthcare, things change often. So we do need to continuously keep our education going and updated so that we stay kind of current.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So my next question back to Sheri Lee is, what do you see as the coming trends in your sector that new graduates should know about?
This is a really interesting question. I think right now, I mean, when we're talking about our industry and health sciences, that it's so obvious of the need, whether we want to call it a trend, a need. I think it certainly has always been a need and impacts everybody's life every day. And I don't know what we would do, without all of you. And so I certainly think that that is the way of the future. I am so pleased to see our government stepping up and acknowledging this by doing, temporary wage increases. I certainly hope that that continues. We see them offering programs, that, our local colleges will be doing, such as Mohawk, where we're doing the accelerated PSW courses. We don't have enough PSWs, we don't have enough RPNs, we don't have enough RNs. So I'm so pleased to see this happening. It definitely, if we want to say it's trending, but I hope it is here to stay. They're announcing new long-term care beds, in our area and other areas. So I certainly think that healthcare and these types of roles are at the forefront. And certainly those other administrative roles that go along with that. I mean, we certainly need, all of those back office supports when it comes to, your finance, your HR, your IT. All of those things are critical for us to be able to do the work that we're doing. So I think healthcare, I certainly would say, is the trend and where we are going. And in going along that, I would also say that route, technical skills. It certainly was not something that was at the forefront when I was in school. Computers were, were very sparse then, but now when you look at all the technical pieces to the work that we're doing every day and how we are doing recording and trainings, it is really, really important. And I know now that individuals are receiving that type of education and training, but that's a critical piece of the work that we're doing. And we certainly look at, along with colleges such as Mohawk, that micro-credentialing and offering some of those smaller courses to help students and future hires of organizations like ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I think micro-credentialing is growing fast. And it leads to lots of new pathways and into a never-ending opportunity, especially in healthcare. Thank you. Jackie?
So just to add on to everything Sheri said, the world is your oyster right now. Like, it really truly is. The opportunity is there for PSWs and nurses right now. If you're buying real estate, they would say it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. This is your market. Really, you have the power right now, and you can really take your career wherever you want to go. And so some trends in what I would add on to that is just some trends when it comes to recruitment and interviewing for roles is you're going to see a lot of interviews happening virtually. And I think that's here to stay. It might not have been the norm in this industry previously. It was starting to become norm in a lot of others, but it's how I've been operating for the last year. And it's that technical skill it's going to be needed. And I know we give our staff cell phones as well, so you can communicate with your supervisors and coordinators when you're out in the field and you've got that support. So being able to manage that independently is going to be very important as well. The other trend also is just going on with that need, everything that we've seen in the last year too. We are seeing trends for home care and collaborating with that like multidisciplinary team. We've got some programs going on with CBI where we have our PSWs are working in an elevated role, and they are collaborating with nurses and therapists towards someone's care that's ongoing in the home too. So some additional trends that I think you have to look forward to. It's those types of programs and getting involved in those are what's going to help you to elevate your career to the next level. And there's lots of incentives, like Sheri said, there's lots of incentives, wage incentives. There's there's been the PSW incentive for new grads that through Health Force Ontario, all of those opportunities to maybe pay down student loans or to advance further and do, if you're graduating from a PSW program, bridging to nursing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really good points, because technology is definitely not going anywhere. And I think one thing that COVID may have brought even more so to the front is that we do need collaboration and teamwork to be successful. So I'll ask Sandra the same question, and then we'll open it up to any student who has a question. You can put it in the chat. Sandra, what do you see as the coming trends for PSWs?
Yes, well, PSW, especially the last year, is almost 100%. If you graduate, you get hired. Could be in the place that you're doing your placement. But for me, PSW is not just to go by money. Being PSW is with heart. If you decided to study PSW, you have to think it's a job that you're gonna put your heart in your job. It's not making money, it's making life, because you're working with life. So it's very challenging. As I told you, you have to be sometimes your family, that daughter, that sister that they waiting for, and is not just going to work, is to give them the best of you. Every time you go for work, you have to give them the best of you, and you're gonna be successful. Sometimes it's not necessary, not even go to an interview. The place you are working and you're doing your placement, they're gonna see you, your heart, your time given to the resident, and you're gonna get hired immediately. Is sometimes, as I told you, sometimes your heart is not exactly your job. You don't have to be pointing on the money, or you get hired quickly. Is because you want to give them the ones that they wants to have. Mhm.
Yeah, and those are all great points for sure. And if you do go to clinical and or placement in any area of healthcare, and you show professionalism, and you're a solid employee, then there is a great potential to be hired.
Mhm.
So we'll start again with Sheri. So what resources should new graduates use to find work in the field?
Sure. I'll give you some tips that I've used along the way. One, I think it's really important. I know it's hard right now, but I think it's really important to be involved in your community and volunteer. And I'm sure many of you have. I think that's a great resource right there. Looking at a list of individuals that you know that you can speak to, and it may have been some of those individuals, whether it's through placements or volunteering or individuals in your community, and talking to them about opportunities, things they're aware of, getting advice. It never hurts to do that in any part of your life, reaching out to individuals. I know it certainly has helped me, and I'm sure it will you. We have lots of employment agencies, around town that are certainly very helpful. I know Mohawk College does that line of work. So certainly reach out to them for help. Don't be afraid to do that and get help with resume writing and interview skills and all of those things that you may have received throughout your education or not, but certainly take advantage of that. Never hesitate to reach out to organizations. I welcome those calls and those emails, and will certainly make time for anyone that is wanting to talk about work that we do or work in the field. It's really important. We all had help during our careers, and so it's important that we continue to do that and help others. And I know that our team members certainly would do that, including in our human resource department. Even if you're going for an interview with a company, make sure that you're going on their website, you're finding out information about those companies so that you're prepared, but don't hesitate to pick up the phone and talk to some individuals in that company and ask some of those questions. So just, take advantage of everyone around you that you can. And I know that sometimes that's really nerve-wracking, especially when you're starting a career. But we're all in this line of work to help others. So don't ever hesitate to reach out and talk to others.
Yeah, that's a great point. Keeping that networking going. I always say in healthcare, it seems so large, but you're surprised. I'm always surprised at how little it actually is. Everyone's connected with somebody. So keeping that networking is important for sure. How about you, Jackie? What resources should new graduates use to find work in the field?
So the networking is huge. And I would also sort of sway people over towards LinkedIn and staying connected with people virtually that way too. You can always follow businesses on LinkedIn so that, if you had heard of someone like the Thrive Group, someone like CBI, you can follow those companies on LinkedIn and you can see updates and you can see who's also affiliated with them. And you might already know someone who is there. And there's always a foot in the door. You've got, of course, your traditional Indeed and your job boards, and as Sheri mentioned, there's plenty of employment offices around Hamilton. Employment Hamilton is one I know of. Of course, Mohawk's Community Employment Services. There's also YMCA Employment Services. There's plenty of organizations that can help with that job seeking. However, like I said already, though, you guys, the world is your oyster right now. So you really, if you pick up the phone and call any company that you're interested in working at, I'm pretty sure that they would take the time out of their day to network with you, offer up any type of support or advice, even a resume review with some tips.
Yeah, those are great points. And I like your point about the virtual connection, because a lot of employers now are looking to that virtual field to see, even when you apply for jobs, right? They check to see what's the virtual background on this person.
Yep.
So this, yeah, great tips. Sandra, what resources should new graduates use to find work in your fields?
Well, I think that health field is always learn, never stop to learn. So when you do the placement, you can talk and take some advantage and ask for advice or all the PSW. I'm not talking all that age, but the ones that have experience and you're working with, you can hear from them. You can ask questions, always ask questions and know how they feel working in that place, or how is the worst experience they have, the best experience they had. So for me, is PSW is practice. So you have to go with the people that are already working there, not only in long-term care, there's some in retirement, there's some in the community too. It's different fields, but it's all pretty much the same job. So you can ask always and have some from the ones that have experience, and you can have more clear how is your job, and because it's for now PSW is you get hired immediately, but as I told you, you have to know exactly where you're doing if you really wants to do that and go for it. Mhm.
Yeah, so those are good tips too, is just staying connected and you know, kind of interviewing around to see what is it like, and if you can see that the team member is happy in that place, then it's probably a good place to be, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Thank you. Just checking the chat. Okay, so we do have one more question that I'll ask each of you, and then we'll see if there's any questions in the chat. Sheri Lee, we'll start with you. What is one piece of advice or knowledge you wish you had at the start of your career?
This one I had to pause and think about for a minute. I think one of the things that I've learned is that it is so important to maintain relationships as you go through your career. You know, your career may take many different paths, you meet many different people. It doesn't mean that all of those relationships are going to be great, but it's so important to keep those relationships. And I say to many, many staff I have over the years is don't burn bridges. It's amazing what a small community we live in. And when you maintain relationships, those come back absolutely and help you on your path. They certainly have me. When I talk about reach out to those individuals that you know and meet with them and talk to them, you know, it's certainly something that I've been able to do in our community, and it's been extremely helpful. So make sure that you just continue to do that and keep as many relationships as you can. You know, keep in contact, stay positive, and that can bring you some great help and success through your career.
Yeah, that's a great point. My grandpa actually used to always say the old analogy with the door, that when one door closes, another one opens. But he used to always say, always keep your foot in the doors. Don't let them close, because you never know if you're going to want to go back through. So yeah, it's extremely important not to burn those bridges. Jackie, what is one piece of advice or knowledge you wish you had at the start of your career?
I wish that someone had told me not to wait, just to do it. If there was something you were thinking about, so for me, I sat and pondered back and forth quite a lot if I wanted to continue into human resources or not. And I wish I just hadn't let that time elapse and I just had done it. It was, when I look back now, at the time, I don't think I thought I had the time. But as you get older and things change, you realize that was the time that I had plenty of time to do those things. So I really wish that I had not sat on things. So don't delay. If you want something, don't procrastinate, go after it and continue to learn.
Yeah, that's a great, and then there's lots of opportunities right now, right? So I think it's a good time to, yeah, if you want something, go for it, for sure. Thank you. Sandra, what is one piece of advice or knowledge you wish you had at the start of your career?
Well, when I do my placement, I remember I was working with a PSW that she had almost 25 years working in the same place, and she has a lot of experience. And she told me, you have to have your heart with love of others, but also you have to be a team player. Yeah, I think that works in every field, but especially in the health field, you need to be a team player. Also, an easygoing person, because even if you're starting or you have a lot of experience, sometimes you need to hear that other people is telling you where you're not doing well, and you have to be like easygoing person and just keep going with them. And also you have to listen always. When the nurse told you something, when the residents told you something, you have to learn to listen. It's very important. Sometimes some people think that I know everything, but no, we always need to listen and take advice. Where everybody wants to give you something, just hear and follow that. And then at the end, I will say, as a PSW or in a health field, you have to follow your heart. When it's your heart, you're gonna feel good, and you're gonna be a good player, a good worker.
Yeah, and it's very true. You have to love what you're doing so you don't feel like you're doing it, right? You're excited to be there every day.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. Those are all great answers. Well, thank you to the three of you for coming out today. It was very informative, great answers, and you each bring a very diverse background into healthcare, showing us how large healthcare actually is and the amount of key players it takes to make it run and go.
Thanks for having us, Tiffany. Appreciate it.
It was really nice to participate.
Yes. So thank you for the opportunity to open my heart and say how I feel, how I
you.
enjoy.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for all that you do, the three of you, especially right now. It's a hard time right now in healthcare.
And I'll just jump in and say thank you so much, Tiffany, for moderating today's panel. Really appreciate it. And of course, a big thank you to our panelists. Really appreciate you taking the time. As Tiffany said, it means a lot that you came back to the college, virtually in this case, to share your career experiences with students and recent graduates. So thank you very, very much. And again, thank you for all that you're doing in the community.